Okay, so saving for the best for last. Here we have our Atlantic Division standings. Sorry, not standings. Trade deadline reactions. Thoughts after the NHL trade deadline. So I see that all of us got a quick little wardrobe change. It did get cold, and I'll tell you
I
what.
don't know why, man. I just got freezing all of a sudden. I was totally fine before. I was in shorts. I got sweatpants on. I got my warmest hoodie on. Like, I don't know why.
So quick disclaimer: if you're waiting for Toronto, if you're waiting for these two guys to go crazy with Toronto, it's not happening. We're gonna do every single team in the Atlantic Division except for Toronto, and Toronto's in its own separate clip. Just better that way for time management, for my sake. And let's start from the bottom this time because I read the division. I started from the top down. Let's start with the Canadians, the last place team in the Atlantic Division. How do you guys feel about their trade deadline moves?
It's a pretty quiet deadline, right? I know we were kind of last time we were talking about them maybe being the mortgage brokers for the Kane deal. Didn't end up happening. Somehow the Coyotes ended up being those guys. I didn't know they like to spend money. Quite the surprise, but they got draft picks and they like draft picks just as much as not spending money. So maybe that's why. But they did do some money laundering in the Benino deal, which is like barely anything. Really, the only big move they made is Gurianov, and that's a good bet. That's a good bet by Montreal. You turned Dadonov, who's just like a vet that I think they brought in. I I don't know if they signed him or if he came in from another trade, but
I think he was from Vegas, was he not? Did they sign him as
he
a?
I
Ooh,
don't
never mind.
remember.
Ottawa signed him.
Oh, he was on that 3-year deal, and then this is maybe the last year of that deal. Is
Yeah.
that what that is? Huh.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was Ottawa, Vegas, and they ended up here. Either way, to turn him into Gurianov is a win, right? This is another guy like the Puljujarvi situation, the Kapanen situation. Just time ran out on the original teams. Fresh start for Gurianov. He's already got one goal. I like Gurianov as a player, and he honestly, you know what? He can kind of fit the Josh Anderson mold of just a guy with straight line speed that can come in and snipe it. Maybe he doesn't have the physical side of Anderson, but
The upside's
I do.
there.
He's got the type of bod. He's got the type of body to be a Josh Anderson type of guy.
So one question I just like, or one point I just wanted to bring up was there's a guy 3 weeks ago when we were in a playoff spot. I was quite interested in. This is Joel Edmondson. He didn't get moved. Do you guys feel like the Habs kind of, you know, got caught with their pants down, or just weren't able to act on this, or do you feel like it was a strategic move because, it's good to have a guy like that in the locker room?
Um, I think you could probably get. I think they're probably caught in two minds. Um, he does have one more year left on his deal, so he's not a UFA this year. Maybe that's something they explore in the off season or at next year's trade deadline. But having somebody like Joel Edmondson around, especially with you just named Nick Suzuki, the captain at 23 years old. A lot of the pieces on that team are relatively young. Like I'm looking at the forward core right now. There's two forwards right now that are over the age of 30. It's Mike Hoffman and Alex Belzile. Out of the two of them, Mike Hoffman's like the everyday type of player. Like I don't know if Alex Belzile in a normal on any other team is probably like in the lineup basically. Even on D, they're still pretty young. So having somebody like Edmondson on the back end who's not even 30 yet, he definitely could have fetched a pretty penny 100%. I know. I believe the Caps were in on him, right? Right, Bry?
I was in on him. I don't think we were actually on
I
paper.
think
Oh, okay.
I think the only team that we knew was in on him was Tampa.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, if Edmonton goes anywhere, he's a leader in the locker room. Like that's what he is. I don't know if you're really gonna like. He's got the good defensive acumen. It's okay. Nothing special, but he is a good locker room presence, and that I think most teams wouldn't mind having. He's got a relatively like for what he brings to the table, 3.5 for this year, next year. Actually, like seems pretty appeasing.
Reasonable.
I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, 100%. So I think if they didn't get anything done, and if they do want to move on from Edmondson, which I don't not in any mind to think like that they will, but if they do want to think of something, I think maybe the summer is probably the next best option, basically to move him around.
I think this year was a wash for them anyway. They have so many injuries. And at the end of the day, like they're
Mhm.
still young. They have a bright future ahead. Let's pass the torch on to another original six team. Let's go to the Detroit Red Wings. They made some moves. They they sold, but they also re-signed their captain. Uh Tyler Bertuzzi, gone. Philip Roenick, gone. Sundqvist, gone. And Dylan Larkin staying. Kind of interesting. What do you guys
I
have?
gotta say,
Yep.
I'm surprised that they traded Roenick. Like they got a good return for him, first and second. But I
I'm a fan.
mean, yeah, I would have honestly thought long and hard about keeping him because he's got that such a palatable number. Um, and he helps isolate Moritz Seider for a little bit longer. Because now Seider is undoubtedly, unequivocally your number one right D. There is no one to push him down on other nights. Like it is him. It is his team, his decor. And Hronik was having a pretty damn good season. So I don't know. That one's a little bit puzzling in my mind, but at the same time, I do get it. The other moves, classic seller moves, Bertuzzi, the one of most significance, and we saw that one actually had an effect on the locker room because we saw the aforementioned Dylan Larkin crying, man, crying on the day of his extension. Right? Was it the same day or was it the day before? I
I
think
think it
he
was the
signed the
day out.
extension. Yeah, so he signed the
He must have
extension the
signed
day
it that
after,
day.
before. Yeah. Okay.
Like,
So either way, it
sorry.
was within
So
2 days.
yeah, with like if I'm not mistaken, it's like he like Eiserman went to his house to like they signed it at Larkin's house, I believe. Um, and then he must have picked up the phone and got the trade going. Yeah, to send Bertuzzi out to Boston, which
Yeah.
that's a it's like we're gonna see like they're in particular they're gonna see Bertuzzi, in the future, especially going to a division rival, right? Like that. Uh, and then I believe that press conference either came after. I believe it came after that. So within 24
Yeah.
hours, I would say. So
It might have been like the presser might have been for the purposes of his extension, right?
of his extension, yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking as well.
Yeah. So that's a tough one there, but they got a good return on him, especially because Bertuzzi doesn't really have the numbers this year because he's kind of been injured, hasn't really been able to get a nice run of games going. So to get the first for him, I think the first and fourth to win, and then the Sundqvist move is not inconsequential. It was a seller deadline for them, and they got they got returns on all the players that they traded. So decent deadline, solid one like the Caps, where it's just you had your UFAs, you traded the ones you knew you couldn't resign. They kept another one too. They kept Olimata, so they didn't do a full sell of all their rentals. And then the Larkin thing came in at what 8.7,
Yep.
8.75, right? I think that's fair value. Fair value, fair deal either way, and it felt like this was always the likely conclusion to the Larkin saga.
Yeah. So another thing I just wanted to add to that as well. They also got Jake Wallman signed as well, who's having a absolutely ridiculous season. So he's moving up to 3.4 over the next three. He's another guy that he's only 27, so it'll take him till he's about 30 years old. 6 goals, 11 points this year. Hopefully he keeps up that similar sort of production. But from everything I've seen, he's been a fan favorite, analytic favorite, and just on based on an eye test, he's been a fantastic addition to that roster. I believe they got him for next to nothing as well from St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm not even going to go through the trade history, but I think that's the biggest thing coming out of Detroit is that they did sell, but they also got their pieces moving forward locked up for at least the next few years. They got their captain locked up for 8, right? So, it could have went a whole lot worse for Detroit. They have a couple of guys that are UFAs end of the year. Pius Suter and Adam Ernie in particular. I don't know how much interest there was on either of them. I know Suter's kind of stock has fallen a little bit. Another guy who kept getting brought up in conversations was 34-year-old David Perron. I mean, you add Perron to any middle six on any of the contending teams, and he makes an immediate impact. I've loved David Perron for such a long time. So maybe you did him a little bit of a disservice not getting him moved, but I think maybe again, like we mentioned before.
At the end of the day, they made their moves as a typical seller.
Yeah.
But it's just
100%.
weird to me because it feels like they've been rebuilding for so long. And what does this indicate? That they're going to be rebuilding again for so long or even longer.
I have a question.
Yep.
I have another question. How long did it take Yzerman to get the Lightning? Okay, granted, he also had a piece like Stamkos coming in, found value with Nikita Kucherov, getting those types of pieces. But I don't know, does it seem to you guys that it's just taking a little bit longer? Maybe to clean up that whole mess left by Ken Holland. Maybe that's the price you have to pay. You have to suffer a bit longer than they did than he did, at least with Tampa. Because to your point there, Brad, it feels like it's been the Wings in kind of like a limbo state. Like they're not truly finished rebuilding, and they're not truly they're not taking it down again either.
So for me, the Bolts were in a situation when Yzerman picked up where they had some pieces. Yzerman with Detroit had to rip down the barn and start the foundation from ground zero. He's done that already. All right. So now he's at the point where he needs to start building from that foundation. It's kind of like, it's going to sound weird, but it's like if you buy a house, but there's nothing dug into the ground yet. He had to dig the ground himself, put whatever foundation is there. And that's the same situation with this. Of course, it's going to take you a little bit longer.
And that's the hardest work.
That's the hardest work, but it's also the base in which the rest, everything else is built upon, right? And I think that's probably why it's taking longer. But what this tells me, this trade deadline, is that it's going to take even longer. Red Wings fans should not, expect playoffs next year or the year after, especially because the Atlantic's so tough. But eventually, we trust Stevie Y. We trust that he can do well. But I think that's enough Detroit for now, unless you guys have anything else to say. All right. So speaking of having enough or not having anything to say, let's talk about the Panthers. All right.
Did they actually make a single move? I'm actually thinking right now. I don't know if they made a singular move.
I feel like they had an AHL move, like a nothing. I feel like that was somewhere. If not, then they legitimately did nothing.
All right, beautiful. Let's go. It's funny because last year they had so much going on, or is it? Yeah.
So I can confirm they have not made a single move in the calendar year of 2023.
Okay.
The year of our Lord 2023, the Florida Panthers are yet to make a trade.
It's crazy.
Well, and so here's the one thing to that. Here's the one thing about that. The reason why they couldn't do anything about that is because last year they unloaded the cupboards. They were going on a fire sale with some of their picks, like Ben Sherratt for a first. That was probably one of the most not noticeable, but if you're going to give up a first for somebody like Giroux, which they did, and then also a first for somebody like Ben Sherratt, I don't know, where do you see the difference between the two? So their cupboards are barren. It's it's the Great Depression in those cupboards right now.
I think,
that's probably a big
sold
reason.
Everything in the cupboards, and then they actually sold the frame of the cupboard.
The cupboards, yeah,
right.
They
the
sold
cupboard
the
is
frame
actually gone,
and the
hinge, the door
shelves,
hinges,
shelves, the door hinges, everything. The cupboard's not there anymore.
And I think
it's just a wall.
I think this is a good telltale to teams that do go all in, the teams that do go crazy and go for it, that this is your outcome. This could be your fate. It kind of sucks. I like the Senators. I like Barkov. Sorry, not the Senators. I like the Panthers. I like Barkov a lot, but it's just how it is. And you know what? Like, it's crazy because they have two legitimate world-class players on their team, Barkov and a little nobody named Matthew Kachuk. He's pretty good, right, boys? So
Yeah, yeah,
it's just
He's
how it
doing
is.
okay.
Just how it is,
these
right?
guys suffer from the very common curse in today's NHL of no goaltending-itis. It's very prevalent in the NHL these days because Bobrovsky has a 904 and Spencer Knight had a 901. It's not the best for a team that was coming off a President's Trophy season. So that's been the story with the team they made the Kachuk trade with, right? No goaltending. So
Okay,
weird parallel there.
let's pass the torch to the Ottawa Senators, who actually did make a big move. They got their man Jake Chikrin. How crazy is it that, like, out of all the places he could have went, he went to Ottawa? You know, what are the odds? It feels
I
like
mean, if you would have told Sens fans that at the beginning of this year, after they got the likes of Claude Giroux, DeBrincat, like they probably won the offseason. And if they didn't win this trade deadline, they were certainly in the winners category 100%. So that's back-to-back buying periods for the Sens where they almost nailed the grade. Like Claude Giroux, all those guys have been immediate impacts on this team. Adding somebody like Chikrin, who's got the control, who's got the skill and the talent, and is finally going to be able to, at the very least, show some of his talents to the, because nobody was watching Coyotes games, guys. Like, let's not make it up here. We could talk about his point totals as much as, but did we ever really get an eye test? We got a bit of that eye test for the against the Rangers, and then he went down with, I believe he stayed in the game, but then he went down with some lower body injury, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully, he remains able to keep playing in the future, because the Senators are going to need him if they truly want to make a push for the playoffs. And if they get into the playoffs, I know a lot of Sens fans this year were like, talk going in was, we're going for the top three one of the top three Atlantic seeds. They were like, oh, we're gonna kick Toronto out of one of those spots. Like, okay, let's temper our expectations a little bit here. But what they've done this season has probably been nothing short of remarkable since probably their 2017 Cup run. Like, if they make it to the playoffs this year, it's probably going to be one of their best seasons in the last half decade, more or less. And adding Jacob Chikrin is kind of like rewarding the group. You're bringing in a guy who doesn't have as much pedigree, but can definitely become one of the core foundations of this franchise going forward.
they might have.
We had a conversation a couple episodes ago, and even in our group chat. How far down the list is Chikrin when you do top defenseman in the NHL? And we came to the conclusion, like, there's maybe 5 definitive names ahead of him, and then you can argue him like anywhere from like 7 to 12. I think he's the singular best player to move at the deadline when you look at it like that, right? Like, Patrick Kane in his current form, you're not saying he's a top 15 forward. And
What about
you can
Luke
say,
Shen?
how could I forget? If we're looking at passion per 60, it's not a question.
Oh, it's gotta
right?
be the
Puts the
Luke.
Shannon passion, right?
I don't know, but
Shannon.
Chikrin looks pretty happy to be out of there.
He does look very happy.
You see his mom and dad
Dude,
tweeting.
His
Thank you,
passion
Ottawa,
per
thank you.
60. Yeah, his passion per
went up
60
too.
would have been intense and literally anywhere. Like, he could have went to the Chicago Blackhawks at this point, who are in a similar spot to the Yotes, and still he probably would have been happy because at least they have a vision going forward.
Maybe anywhere but Anaheim. I think if you went to Anaheim, you would have been saying, well, this
Ooh.
team kind of looks very similar.
I don't know, man. You're
Right?
playing alongside the likes of like Mason McTavish, and you could potentially be playing alongside Connor Bedard in the future. Like, who knows, right?
Yeah,
but Arizona, like, they could have got Connor Bedard, but it's like there's just no hope there, it seems.
Can't wait to see how they mess this guy up.
Oh my God.
The difference between Ottawa and Arizona or Anaheim or whatever is that it's not just trajectory, it's not just a path, it's not just vision, it's the idea of you are seeing the Senators go up, 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 up
Oh
every
yeah,
single year slowly. And it's ramping up at a pace that's like similar to like the Rangers a couple years ago. They
it's a
just
good
keep
comparison.
100%.
they're adding names, big names. Like Claude Giroux is just not a nobody, you know.
Giroux, Chikrin,
Yeah,
and DeBrincat. Like that's a three-headed monster that you just brought in this year. That is like absurd. And Chikrin is the best of those three, arguably. And you're already adding to a good core that was already there last year.
especially for the Sens who struggled in recent years, even when they were at their height of like, you know, Eric Carlson, like that whole era, they were still struggling to attract free agents coming into town. Now you get those guys, and like unfortunately it had to do with their previous owner who passed away. Unfortunately, that was a big reason why a lot of people just weren't attracted to come, because Ottawa's a beautiful place. It's a really nice building to play in. Everything about the team is genuinely awesome. Like I know we should, like as Leaf fans, me and Christian, we should probably hate them a lot more. We didn't really grow up with those playoff battles. Like we caught maybe like the tail end, but
Those are stories that we've been told, not
yeah, the
able to
passed down
watch.
stories.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm glad now that it seems like Ottawa is finally becoming a viable destination for free agents
It's not
in
it's
the
not that
future. And
it's not that like there weren't a viable destination in the past. I get it, there was that stigma, but it's like now if you come to Ottawa, you're here to win. And that's the
yeah,
main
Yeah.
goal. And I think that getting Chikrin solidifies that. You know, this is a guy that's had a chip on his shoulder his whole career. Passed on the draft, dropped, drafted at what, 21, 26, played in Arizona, begging to get out, playing his heart out, putting up the numbers. Now he finally gets to play not just as a number one guy, or not as a number one guy, but potentially as a number two guy behind Shabbat. Obviously comparable. I think Chikrin's better personally, but like you said, arguable. And
Brian, who's the number three?
it's Brandstrom, no?
Dave
No, it's
Sanderson. How
Sanderson.
could you?
It's
You
Sanderson,
off
yeah.
this podcast right now. You've been the more. We're sending you to the minors. No, I'm joking.
It's Sanderson, yeah. That's
Dude, when you have a three-headed monster like that, Chikrin can be the number one night, but he doesn't have to be the number one every night. They can take turns. You're passing it around, right? Chikrin can decide, okay, boys, I want to be the three tonight. Sanderson, can you be the two? And then Shabbat, you be the one. Yeah, sure, bro. Sounds good. You could just
and
like that's what a great problem to have.
and the best part
it's
is
a four-headed
they're
monster.
they're all
Yeah.
they're all not only are they all interchangeable, but they're all left-handed. And I get it. You want to have maybe a right-handed one to pair up, but what this
Chikrin
means,
plays both sides though,
that's true.
right? You
So
can
does
throw.
Brandstrom.
But in
Bingo.
this situation, Shabbat, Sanderson, Chikrin, you're guaranteed a strong left side at all times if that's what you want.
Can do
I-
that. Yeah.
And it's just an interesting situation to look at, given how sometimes, or I'm gonna say all the time this season, the right side has been pathetically bad.
Oh my god.
But
Yeah.
then again,
Addition
right,
by subtraction, though, getting rid of Zaitsev. So hey, that's another bonus.
yes, that
trade
is
that
true.
they
They
made
got
there.
they got that guy off the books. But
Yeah.
I mean, like I said,
Listen, I
trajectory
hope the
going up.
Sens make the wild card. I'm cheering for them. Honestly, a likable team. Maybe that's just because the Leafs haven't played them a ton yet this season. But I'll enjoy the Sens while I can before I do start wanting to hate them because they're too good. Because I'm sure if you're a Red Wings fan, you absolutely despise Brady Tkachuk because he clowned your team 2 games in a row. So
Okay, so you said that you are cheering for the Sens to make it into the playoffs, Christian. Let's move into the other team you're cheering to make it into the playoffs this year. The Buffalo Sabres. They acquired Jordan Greenway. They're adding him to their team this trade deadline for the rest of the season. How do you guys feel about their odds to get in?
honestly, man, they have a good chance. They really do. Like on points percentage, they are in a wild card spot ahead of the Islanders right now. So why not? Why not add? And it's the same argument that you had with Ottawa, where you got to add to thank the team for the effort they've put in for the season, and you definitely have to do that with the Sabres. This isn't a surprise team that we didn't expect to rise this season. And the Greenway edition is one for this season, but for the future. It is a bit of a reclamation project. or a reclamation project. Yeah, because he hasn't been the best in Minnesota in the recent years. It's kind of been mixed results, and this season specifically, I think he's got like what 7 points. It's not a huge amount. Yeah, he's got 7 points in 45 games, so that is definitely a lowly number. But not too far in the past. 27 points in 62 games, 32 points in 56 games. There's been injury concerns there as part of this as well. But I think it's a decent risk for a Sabres team to take. They have so much cap space, it's not even funny. And getting a reclamation project who only makes $3 million and is only 26 years old, that's a decent risk to take. I'm cool with that. And now they can now trademark the skyline. I had to mention the skyline. Tage Thompson, 6'6", Jordan Greenway, 6'6". Alex
two
Tuch,
biggest
6'4".
They are the biggest buildings in Buffalo right now.
Like that's literally, man. Yeah.
Because the joke is, I don't think they have a building in Buffalo over 28 stories, if I'm not mistaken, which is pitiful for a major city. Like it's really bad. So that's little tongue-in-cheek joke there. Another thing as well, they are playing the Tampa Bay Lightning right now. Can anybody guess what the score is?
What period are we?
It's 3 minutes left in the second as of this recording.
Okay, so I cheated because I've saw that Tage Thompson, my Lord and Savior, scored another goal. So I'm gonna say it's 3-1 Buffalo with 2 Tage Thompson goals.
Okay, no Tate. You got the first part right. It is 3-1 with 3 minutes left. I think
3-1 Tampa or
Thompson
Buffalo?
Scored. No, Buffalo.
Hinostroza
and Tyson Jost both scored. So
Vinny
so you didn't get
okay.
Vinny Hinney. Yeah. So you know what? If they win today against Tampa, that's a huge. Not only is that also helping the Leafs, that's helping the Leafs out a lot. So I'll thank you for that, Buffalo. If you could pull this through. But the only concern I have, and it's been my concern all year, is the goaltending situation. Craig Anderson, 41 years old. I don't know how long it's been since Eric Comrie's played. I know Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has been the backup, and me and Christian got to see up close, last week, what he brings to the table, and it was unfortunate to him because that was the
Ryan O'Reilly table. Didn't put anything on it.
Yeah, basically just 4 legs. And it wasn't I think we mentioned it that night. It was it wasn't even a slight on him. It looked like his defense they had no answer to the Leafs their attack. So maybe if that's another cause for concern, maybe they could have targeted another D man there. Really, Labushkin's your shutdown now.
For me with the Sabres, I feel like they know they're not going to win the cup this year. But what they do know is that they're getting better. And they're getting better fast.
Just get in. It's that winning culture that they need. That's exactly what they need. It's get in, get the monkey off your back.
It's kind of
this increases the vibes through the roof for next year. This gets the fans back in the building. Because despite the Sabres being good this year, they haven't been selling out every game. This is how far down the line the Sabres fans were disrespected.
And it's not like Buffalo isn't a market that a team could thrive in. We watch the Buffalo Sabres. I watch the Sabres week in, week out. They fill Highmark Stadium 75,000 strong, and it's like a sea of blue, white, and red in there. It's insane. They go crazy for the Bills. That is what the Sabres need to aspire to be. Just start creating that winning culture.
It's that you can see them ramping up, kind of like Ottawa. Just this season, okay. We can get better. Next season, we're getting better. Next season, we're getting better.
It started with last year. Last year at the beginning, it was it seemed like there was no progress, and then it was they traded Jack Eichel out, and Tage Thompson found form. I mean, he found form most of the season, but it was it was Tage Thompson. Then it was Alex Tuch.
Where I'm going with this is that they're bringing in Greenway as a reward. We know that the GM is basically saying, okay, you guys are playing well. We're bringing somebody in for you guys this one time. if you guys continue to do better, I'll keep bringing guys for you guys. Well, we can make this better. You know, it's kind of like the hungry dog. You're giving him treats as he does better, as he's behaving and learning, right? And that's what the Senators are doing. But
two things. Owen, I'll make them fast. Two things. Owen Power. I didn't realize this guy's 6'6". Holy crap. He's playing 23 minutes a night. Holy crap, Owen Power. He could literally go toe to toe with Dali for being best defenseman on the team within like a year. Second thing, I'm gonna make a little bit of a comparison here to the Atlanta Braves. Alex Anthopoulos and the Atlanta Braves has been signing younger guys to these super long deals very early into their careers to lower the annual average value. He's done it with a guy, Michael Harris, too. And he also did it with a guy, Spencer Strider. If you don't know what Spencer Strider looks like, look this guy up. He's got this freaking stash that's like, it's menacing, bro, okay? And also he throws 100 miles per hour. So he signed those two guys really early into their careers, like halfway through their rookie seasons for like 8 years each. There's other deals he did too. I want to draw that comparison with Buffalo because Kevin Adams was on that with Tager.
Yeah, Austin Riley was another one of those.
Austin Riley is another one, and that's a huge one because that guy hits bombs.
That's a cornerstone for their team.
Yeah. So
right?
a bunch of guys, even probably I think Acuna is on a long-term deal. So many guys are on. Ozzy Albies is another guy. Anthopoulos has been signing these guys to long-term deals forever. And in Buffalo, we've seen Tager in the offseason, Dylan Cousins mid-season, and Matthias Samuelsson at the beginning of the year. All three of those guys signed through 2030. It's a nice trend in Buffalo, and I bet they continue it with some of their next RFAs. Maybe not Dahlin. You might have to pay through the nose for him, but you can do that when you have these guys at lower numbers.
But that's a guy you want to pay for, right? That's a guy. You know what? Mm-hmm. It's justifiable. We're gonna pay through the nose because we know what he's worth. We know what he's gonna become.
Yeah, and you can do it because you're paying less on the dollar value for Tager, Cousins, and Samuelsson, right? On the open market, and those guys fetch more. Right.
Here's another thing too. That's the difference between this regime as compared to previous regimes. So before
Skinner's contract,
Skinner, you look at Kyle Pozo. You look at when they signed Matt Molson. He signed 5x5 or 5x6 at a time when the cap was like a third, or it was closer to half of what we're at right now. Like, you know, it was like he was putting up career highs at like 25.
The difference is
he owed Tavares half of that contract.
Yeah.
The difference now and before was that before it's a destination where free agents were going to get paid. Now it's becoming a destination where free agents go to win.
Yeah. Like Ottawa.
In the sense, man. It's nice to see.
Yeah. All right. Let's move over to another team. We're obviously we're skipping over Toronto, so we're going to go to Tampa Bay now. The Bolts got their guy. That's what I have to say about this. They paid through the nose for Tanner Jeannot. But Christian brought up a good point. Christian said...
Yeah. What did I say, Brian? I want to hear what you said that I've said.
You can't clown the Bolts for getting their guy.
No.
And I'll let you explain why.
They'll shove it up your ass, man. They'll just pardon my language, but this is the part of the video where we get really intense now, okay? We're getting close to Leaf territory. We're talking first-round opponents. And, Leaf fans, we got to start building up some goodwill with the hockey gods as we approach April. And let's not clown on the moves that our rival opponents make, because it will come back to bite us in the ass when Tanner Jeannot is on the ice in Game 6, and he finds himself in front of the net, and puck bounces around it careens off the boards, hits one of the stanchions, and it just pops right in front of him. Right? Yeah, goes in off his head, and and he's a folk hero in Tampa. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's put some respect on the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 3-time Cup finalist Tampa Bay Lightning. They did get their guy. He's in the same vein as Nick Paul, Ross Colton, Brandon Hagel, Blake Coleman, Barclay Gaudreau.
The list goes
on and on. The lineage, this is now we're in the third generation of these trades. So, that being said, Tanner Jeannot was basically their biggest move. Their only other move was losing Nemesnikov for a guy from San Jose that his name you probably don't know, Michael Eyssimont or Ois Eyssimont. Don't even know how to pronounce his name myself. The word on the street on this guy is he's a Tampa Bay type of player who's super intense, good fourth line energy guy. So this is another Tampa Bay style guy that they got there. I'm not about to be scared of Michael Eissermont, but yeah, those are the two moves they made. And if you're a Leaf fan, you have to feel at least a little bit comfortable that that's where the moves ended, right? You have to. On the Tampa Bay front, this is already a very stacked team. That's if they're the nice hedge plant, they're just trimming it, just making sure it's nice and round. That's what Jeannot was. It was the finishing touches on an already very good roster.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, bro.
Oh, you can go. You can go.
Yeah, so here's the thing. When we look at trades, we always like to look at like who won the trade, who lost the trade. I think Tampa both won and lost this trade. I'm not gonna be the type 100%. They gave up quite a bit for Tanner Jeannot. I don't think that could be disputed, right? But when Tampa Bay targets a player, they clearly see something in them that fits their style of play, that fits their philosophy. And somebody like Tanner Jeannot is exactly who we would have targeted. Like if you would have put a dartboard out with people who Tampa was targeting, Tanner Jeannot would have been that guy on
This is the sniff test.
That's the sniff test. And that's what we keep going back to. Like there's clearly a reason why Tampa Bay went out to get him. Now, does that mean that they probably had to pay a little bit more to get him to come to Tampa? Sure, that's fine. But we're not going to worry, a 2025 first, top 10 protected, 2024 second, 2023 fifth. Like some of these guys, like, okay, for sure, a couple of them are going to be picked this year, some of them next year, another one the year after. Like these guys aren't going to make impacts in Tampa's lineup or they wouldn't have made impacts in Tampa's lineup until 2028, 2029. Like they want to win right now. They've won the previous 2 cups before last year, made it to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. They want to keep that going. And how's the only way that you could do that is just throwing your picks into the fire. Like, I believe Julian Breezebrough brought up the fact to say, like, we know how valuable our picks are. And when we give up something, we know that type of value. Like everybody wants to put a value on what we give up, but we know what our value is. So that just goes to show, like, they were ready to pay. Now, David Poile probably knew that before. That was his last move before he stepped down for Barry Trotz.
It's a good parting gift.
Kind of, yeah.
How nice
100%.
of him.
What a Santa Claus in Nashville.
See for me, what I
Hey,
see.
you calling David Poile old, Dave? Come on.
Never. The guy looks like a skeleton.
See for me, when I look at the Tampa move, I see an emperor trying to cement his dynasty. And how do emperors cement dynasties? They raid and they crush. They took what they wanted from Nashville, and they know what they wanted, and now they're going to use that to their advantage and crush whatever they see in the path for one last run. People forget a modern day
Brian.
People forget what a dynasty is 3 cups in 4 years. They got 2 already. They have 2 and 3. If they win this, that's their dynasty right there. Yes, there's that little black spot where they lost in the finals to Colorado, but
I mean, they made it to the finals. Like, there's the caveat.
Exactly. And I don't know. I like the move in the sense that when Tampa knows what they want, they go get it. And they did that just right now. And we're going to see the impact of it in the playoffs. If it doesn't work out...
Very quickly, I'm going to say, even if it doesn't work out, you take your chances here. But I know I said, you got to feel at least a little bit more comfortable that Jeannot is basically their biggest and kind of only move. If you're a Leaf fan, though, don't take solace in that fact. Don't be too comfortable, because you got to remember when we played them, they didn't have a healthy Brayden Point for the majority of that series. So that's if you're trying to compare last year to this year, don't forget to include him in that equation. Sorry?
And he was out in the deciding games. Like,
exactly.
Game 7, he did not play. Right?
Wasn't it that he was injured all year and then he tried to make the comeback in our series and kind of like
They
wasn't ready?
Re-aggravated.
re-aggravated something.
Exactly. So listen, he wasn't the breaking point that we're seeing this year. This guy's got 39 goals. He's about to hit 40. He could if he gets hot, end up with 50 goals. Yeah. So no team added a 50-goal scorer this year, and Tampa, at least in comparison to last year, they have that in their pocket, which they didn't have in round 1 last year. Just throwing that out there.
Are you guys done with Tampa, or do you guys want to have anything else to say?
I think we're good. We'll probably end up inadvertently hitting Tampa notes when we talk Leafs. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go to the big fish, bro.
Big fish.
Get them out of the way.
Big fish. Big B's. Boston Bruins. They did a lot, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
This is an all-in year for them, from what I can see. Bergeron on that beautiful best value contract in the league, just to get one more shot at it.
I may or may not have the Bruins game on in the corner right now as well. You know, I'm doing some scouting.
And they might, and scouting you should, because they do have the best roster on paper I've ever seen in my life. This team
Honestly,
is ridiculous.
Let's give the asterisk of definitely salary cap era. But we talked about this yesterday, Dave. What were you saying? You were saying last 30 years they're like top 3. We could argue, right?
Well, so in the modern era. Okay, so I'm not going to go as far. So they eclipsed the record for fastest to 100 points, which was held to this point by the Habs. But it was like in that time they weren't playing to overtimes and shootouts, stuff like that. Like they couldn't get the extra point, so they played to ties. So that's why I said 19. I think it was 1995. Whenever Detroit hit their like
crazy number,
they went like an absolutely insane number that I think Tampa ended up breaking a couple of years ago. But that would have been the benchmark for greatest teams of all time. Like on paper, like that team alone had like 8 Hall of Famers, I think, on it. This team is probably the best comparable to that. I think we also ran down Boston's team from this year and the record-breaking Tampa Bay Lightning from what was that, 2018-19. Yeah. And I think we came to the consensus, like top to bottom. I think that the Bruins pretty much have the Lightning beat.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, top to
I'm
bottom.
pretty sure that
like,
was,
and that's a very high bar, man. It was just their depth, right? Like some of the guys in Tampa, they were almost more than the sum of their parts, right? Like you read the individual names out. Yeah,
playing up higher maybe than their actual, projected value, perhaps.
The thing
this is like on paper and with the context of the on ice products, the coach, the system, the culture, only increases our thoughts on this, right? So it's more than just the isolation of the roster on paper here, which is scary.
So what we can see is that they added Bobby Skorlov. They added
Bobby Skorlov. Oh my god.
Garnet.
They added Garnet Hathaway and they added Tyler Bertuzzi. Oh boys, that's all I have to say.
And the Tyler Bertuzzi add is to supplement both Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno going down with injuries. Like, how insane is that? Like, come playoff time, Nick Foligno, former captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets, former Toronto Maple Leaf for a hot second, is going to be playing like fourth line minutes with Garnet Hathaway. Like, and that fourth line is probably better than most teams like third lines, like as a shutdown. Like, I think the comparable we had yesterday night at 2 a.m, we were all talking to each other, and it was like they have 2 first lines and
a third
2
line.
third lines. I think we said.
I think we said for a first line, 2 second lines, and a
2
third
seconds line. And the third line. That's what it was. Yeah. Like insane.
And then first pairs and a second pair.
And a second pair, like insane. And the Vezina winner, like Vezina, he will be the Vezina winner in net. And Jeremy Swayman, who's not bad either.
No slouch.
I don't know how you beat this team.
Bro, I don't know. Like,
you're asking us.
Every series, you just be like, yeah. So we'll see how many games the Bruins win this one in, right? And this isn't like trying to reverse jinx them or anything. Like this is just flat out.
Well,
I don't know how
listen.
you can say otherwise, right? Listen, I'll be trying.
Listen,
I'll be trying to
if we can, we will 100%.
Yeah, but listen, you see, I'm trying to build goodwill with the hockey gods, so I can't miss it with that hockey voodoo. Okay, so listen, man, it's all the truth for me. That team is scary as hell. That team is gross. They're led by a line called the Perfection Line. You might as well call the whole team the Perfection Team. Like, dear God, it is scary. Bobby Skorlov's got
They're
what,
close.
7 points in 3 games or 4 games? He's literally been Bobby Orlov right now. Okay,
He's found a home. Like you see.
Sorry, Brian, you lost him.
I know he's gone.
You lost him. He's a goner. Gardner Hathaway.
And he was the one guy.
He's a goner.
He was the one guy you said, like, hopefully he doesn't get too attached. I mean, even Hathaway too. Like, hopefully he doesn't get too attached because, man, I don't know. I don't know. It's gonna be tough to get them back.
This is a team with Tyler Bertuzzi, Brad Marchand, Trent Frederick, and Gardner Hathaway.
Bless you. The problem is
that was me signaling take over, boys, take over as I sneeze on mute.
The problem is like they're grittier than you. Like they're fast. They're almost faster than every single team in the league.
They're bigger than you.
They're bigger.
They give a shit more than you.
They're more talented. Like Marchand and Pass are not gonna
top
10 talented players in the league.
I don't think it's foot speed fast. I just think it's you see them skating at you and you stop. Like you're like you start to quiver a little bit. Like they scared the shit out of you, so you just stop moving. It's that type of quickness. You know what I mean? Petrification quickness.
The big
Petrificus totalis, right, Dave?
The big thing that you can point out to the Bruins that most other teams don't have is that you can tell that like they know that like this is their chance. They know that this is the time, and on their team, every single player is one of those guys that when it comes down to that exact moment that you need to show up, they all do it. I mean, they have the guy right there, Patrice Bergeron. He embodies what it means for this team and their identity, and it's going to be interesting to see because if they don't win, I mean, at this point, it's like what are the odds they don't win, right? It's theirs to lose, but if that's the situation you're looking at, if they don't win, does he come back and take another value deal for this team, or is that it?
I don't think so, to be honest. If we're projecting it, I would say no, just because like this whole season on the whole, like yeah, if they come up short in the playoffs, but this is a perfect season to end your career in, to be honest. Like he's got his cup. It's not like he's cup chasing for like a Ray Borg style, right? You go out with this because you know that every single player on this team has poured their heart into this season, and if they do lose, it's kind of that like this is just how it was meant to be mentality. Like you have no doubts about this team's effort, and if you've put in 100% effort, I think you just go out like that. To be honest,
Dave, you got anything left?
Christian, I hate this team so much. They cause so much pain. Like, I genuinely dislike them.
Christian, you got anything left? One last thing on the Bruins.
I don't, because I have a phrase in my mind that I like to say. I'm not going to say it. No. Switch teams before I start clowning.
If you say it, it might jinx it. Okay, so
exactly. Yep.
That concludes our Atlantic minus Toronto talk for the
Stick
trade
around
deadline.
For that video.
It's
Come
coming.
Back for that one.
It's coming. I saved it for last because I know it's gonna be the longest. And I need to sit through that, but but yeah, we'll end it there. That's our wrap.